this video, I'm going to share with you what I have learned about everything from channeling extraterrestrials. This is the Michael Denney YouTube channel, formerly the Thunder Wizard channel. Disclosure is coming. Open contact is here. Please join me later today for a live guided interdimensional meditation. We do these every Wednesday and Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't make the live stream, you can go to the live section on my YouTube channel. All of them are recorded there. All of them are different. Go check them out, especially if you want to have an experience with the beings that I am going to be talking about today. So we're going to be talking about how channeling extraterrestrials has completely shifted my understanding about everything, what I'm finding out about how these channeling sessions are shifting the people that I'm working with. How creating this energetic portal, which is what's happening. When somebody comes to me wanting to hear what extraterrestrials have to say to them, it creates a higher dimensional portal, an interdimensional portal between them and the ETs. And so unless you know what these beings are, you're not going to know what that's going to do for you, how that's going to shift you. So I'm going to share about that in this video. So, anyway, extraterrestrials. First, let's just get right into it. What are ETs? So ETs are what our ancestors called angels. So let me just dispel what I thought extraterrestrials were and what you might think they are based on, first off, your 3D human experience as well as what we've been told. So without getting into the big deal about how we have been programmed, I'm here to tell you that the programming that we have about aliens, this has been going on for 13,000 years. The people that we call the elites, they have been programming our mind against extraterrestrials for 13,000 years, because if you understand what these beings are and you connect with them, you will never be able to be controlled ever again in the third dimension. So, extraterrestrials are not what we think they are, what we've been told they are. That, like, we have this experience that in the third dimension, what we think happened is that Earth sort of, the explosion in the universe and all these gases and rocks and things come together and create Earth, and it gets hit with all of these comets and things which put gases and water and things like that, and all of a sudden after millions of years it creates this scenario which is conducive to life, and somehow the universe sort of farts on it, and then amino acids come together and somehow life is created, and out of that consciousness emerged. Well, that's what we unconsciously assume is what's going on the rest of the other planets, which is why we have the assumption that extraterrestrials are these alien beings who are coming to see what are these humans all about. Well, because that's what we would do. And understandably, we don't know any better. We project our experience onto everything. And so we think that's how everything is. But if you understand what Earth is, which now I do, as a result of communicating with these beings, I've come to find out that Earth is the anomalous place. Earth is not how the rest of the universe functions. Earth is a closed, third dimensional experiment And so the way things are here is absolutely 100% opposite of what happens outside of Earth. Outside of Earth, consciousness, all conscious beings have a conscious and visceral and energetic connection with what we would call God, the source, however you want to look at it. So imagine every being being born fully awakened spiritually. That's what it's like out there. So they know from past lives, from multiple dimensional experiences, they know that other planets and other civilizations are just beings just like them. They know from birth that they have chosen to incarnate in a physical body in some planet on some solar system somewhere. They know who they are from the moment that they're born. Unlike humans who wake up as little babies, have no idea who they are, they don't have any memories of any past lives, and they just stumble through this really difficult, violent, disconnected, frightening place where you can't sense anybody else's thoughts or feelings. You don't have any connection to anything outside of your own, bubble of awareness, and it's frightening, and you can't trust people, and the animals are trying to kill you, and you're starving, and you have to go and find food, and you don't feel connected to anything. You have to learn as you go. You have to learn how to trust in the universe. You have to learn how to awaken your intuition. You have to learn all those things, and if you don't learn them, you're miserable and narcissistic and destructive. So we think that's what it's like everywhere in the universe. Why would we think anything else? Well, when you get outside of this third dimensional reality and you experience what it's really like out there, then you understand, oh, I had it all wrong. So ETs, by the way, many of them do look very similar to this beautiful picture of, I don't know what this is, AI something. Many of them look like that. And now they aren't coming to Earth to try and figure us out, experiment on us. They're not doing that. They are in their connection to their spirituality all the time. They don't see other races and other beings as being different. What they see when they look at any conscious being is their soul. That's the first thing that they see and experience. And whatever meat suit you're wearing is, what the wardrobe. It's like if we go out to a party and we want to say, oh, wow, you look really good in that outfit. We don't see them, oh my God, you're dressed differently than me. You're totally different than me. We don't do that. We see another human and we connect with them. We see them in the same way we look at ourselves. We just know that they're wearing a different costume. So that's how they look at other beings from other planets, even if they've never met them. The moment they see another being in a physical form, their first thing is they connect spiritually, and they, telepathically and energetically and emotionally, they connect with that being. Then they might be out of curiosity, hey, what planet are you from? Oh, that's cool. Want to come check out my planet? Unlike what we do. Totally different. So even though these are physical beings on another planet coming from their own civilization, they, as I said, they have a completely different understanding about reality, about themselves, and about Earth. So let's get rid of something else. They don't see Earth as this strange thing. Why is that? Because Earth is an intergalactic experiment. And, again, third dimensional misinformation oftentimes comes from a kernel of truth. So, a lot of the ufology crowd are obsessed with the idea that aliens came here and spliced their genes into, monkeys and made humans, and people say, human beings are these whatever. The truth of that is that the human race is a collaboration beforehand. It wasn't like humans were already here, or hominids were walking around, and then aliens came and said, let's improve them, let's splice their genes. No. Before any life even evolved on Earth, what happened is that all of these different extraterrestrial races said, let's create a really cool experiment in consciousness. And people will come from different planets and incarnate there and bring their knowledge. It turns out that the Andromedans were the ones that spearheaded this. So Earth is really an Andromedan led experiment. All of the other civilizations are part of that. And that's because on a soul level, we're all the same. So when we follow our souls all the way back to the source, we get to what people call God. God is not a guy standing there pointing at you, telling you what to do. God is all of the souls that exist in one consciousness. And you can be in the midst of God, have your own consciousness, and then simultaneously be connected to all other conscious beings at the same time. That's God. So God said, hey, man, let's do this really cool idea of, you guys create this Earth thing if you want to do that. So Earth was created as an experiment in consciousness. So all extraterrestrial beings know that their essence is that they are souls, just like you. And whatever physical manifestation they take on is an experiment. Oh, I want to be an Andromedan this life. Or I want to be a Pleiadian. Or they'll reincarnate over and over again on a certain planet because they like that one. And they like, that's what their soul is drawn to. So Earth is a place where souls from all over the multiverse choose to come when they want the most difficult school in how to connect to your soul. That's what Earth is all about. That's why it's so harsh, because it is so harsh. The only way you can survive living on Earth is you have to have a spiritual awakening, or you will die a miserable, horrible death. And so souls come here knowing, man, this is going to be tough, but all right, let's do this Earth thing. The other thing is that they know that when they come to Earth, they're signing up for many different classes. If you go to college and you're going to get a graduate degree, you're going to be in college for multiple years. That's what it's like coming to Earth. You have one life, you leave that life, you go back, you talk to your friends, which we call our guides, but really they're just our friends. And we sit back and go, yeah, you know what, I should have done this. And what do you think of that? And how about this? And here's the thing that you missed. Let's look at your life thing again. And you go, oh yeah, that's right, I see that. Okay. And then you go back because you have to get your degree, you got a few more years. And it's hard, it's going to be hard. You're going to forget who you are, all of that stuff. So this is an experiment that's going on all over the multiverse. All over the multiverse, people come to Earth for that reason. Other planets have other lessons, and they're much easier. They're much, like I said, you're born into, you're born into the Pleiadian, one of the Pleiadian civilizations, and you wake up, that you're a soul from the moment you experience your soul, you experience deities, all of that. It's a completely different, completely opposite thing. That's the norm. Earth is not. So until we get over our narcissism and we stop projecting on the rest of the multiverse what our very challenging situation is, until we get over that, we won't understand these beings unless we communicate with them. And then you'll have a transformation. It'll blow your mind. Let's see, where am I? All right, so ETs are what our ancestors called angels. So you got that? They're not grays that float through the ceiling, and there's no war between good and bad aliens. That's all BS. All of that is complete either lies, misinformation, projection. It's not at all true. They are what we have experienced throughout human history as angels, messengers from divine messengers, demigods. And we've interpreted the best we can because, we didn't understand between, in certain epochs in our human existence, we haven't understood the idea. 13,000 years ago, we did. That's a whole other subject I've talked about. But so during those periods when human beings' perception, spiritual perception is dimmed, then when we get communications from these beings talk to us about God. They talk to us about spirituality. They talk to us about psychological truths connected to spiritual growth. Their only interest is in spirituality and spiritual growth. So imagine a being comes from another planet, but they're completely awakened spiritually, and they're in a higher dimension, and they come and they appear to you. You're going to feel their energy. They're going to talk to you about your soul. They're going to talk to you about God. They're going to talk to you about spirituality. That's the only thing that they're going to do. So our experience of them will always be that they're angels. Always. Anybody who's done CE5, anybody who's had an interdimensional connection with an extraterrestrial being can tell you that their experience is that it's an extremely spiritual experience, and these beings are very spiritual. Okay? So what our ancestors called angels is what ETs actually are. Or I should say, that's how they appear to us. ETs always communicate how loved you are. So this is how you know somebody has had an encounter with an actual extraterrestrial. From the get-go, from the moment, if somebody says, what happened? The first thing that they're going to talk about is the feeling of love, how loved they were, how empowered they felt, how loving the communication was. If somebody says anything else, it's either they were operating out of their fear, which does happen, sometimes because it's a higher dimensional being, and the frequency of a higher dimension is frightening to our third dimensional awareness. So from somebody comes from that place, their first response may be fear. But it's the fear of the unknown. It won't be because anything is happening to them. Of course, as I've said many times, and there's proof for this out there if somebody does the research, as it turns out, all of the alien abduction experiences were actually human beings using all kinds of technology to fake that. People were actually abducted. They were actually experimented on. Sometimes they're repeatedly, sexually abused, all these things. That is something that does happen in so-called alien abductions, but they're done by humans. They're not done by extraterrestrials. So somebody's had an experience with an extraterrestrial if the first thing that they talk about is how loved they felt, and the communication will be how loved you are. Bear in mind, again, these beings don't see you as a different species. They see you as one of their family that has gone into the experiment, and that's the first thing they do is they relate to you. Just like if you had a family member, a wife, a husband, a child, a brother, a sister, a grandparent, and if they had, let's say, some kind of a brain injury where they had amnesia and they didn't remember anybody, what's the first thing you do? You go, hi, it's me. I'm your son. I love you. And you go, really? You're my son? Really? You're my wife? I'm married to you? Yes, we've been married for 20 years and I love you more than anything in the world. That's the first thing that we do to somebody that's lost their memory of us. That's the first thing these beings will do. When they make real contact you, once you've gone past the initial connection and they have contact with you, they are going to start talking to you the same way you would talk to somebody who had lost their memory. They're going to tell you how, they're going to make you feel safe and loved. So nobody in that connection is going to do anything harmful to you. So anybody who says something different happened, they're either, having a bad dream, or they're lying, or it's a human being that was using all kinds of crazy technology on it. True extraterrestrial connection, the first thing they'll talk about is how loved they feel. So there is no separation between the ETs and the deities. So this is what I experience this now, which is when I go into interdimensional meditation and I get a connection or a communication from some higher dimensional being. It could be a physical extraterrestrial. It could also be a deity. Once you get out of the third dimensional protective bubble, once you get out of that, there's no separation. So these beings, these extraterrestrials, have direct connection to all of the deities. They have a direct connection to God, if you will. All of them do. And so there's no separation. For them, there is no separation between them. They're all conscious beings in this huge, wonderful, beautiful universe. Heaven, we talk about when people die on earth and they go to heaven. Heaven is getting outside of the third dimension. That's why heaven has multiple levels. The seventh level of heaven. Because there's higher dimensions. So you get out of the third dimension. When you leave your body and you die, you go out of the third dimension and you go up to the fourth or the fifth. You're in heaven. Now you're aware that there are other levels of heaven above you. Now, when it comes to people who have near-death experiences, they are only getting part of the picture. So that's why they come back and they all say the same thing. They all say that they went to some waiting room where they talked to Jesus or Buddha or their grandparents or their dead spouse or something like that, or a group of light beings, councils. They talk about that. They have a life review, and then they're asked, do you want to go back to Earth or not? Because they all say that in this waiting room, they could tell on the other side of the door there, behind where the light beings are, or the guides, or Jesus, or whoever they're talking to, that on the other side of that is where the real party is, and they really want to go there. They can feel that that's where they want to go. But on the other side of that door is a reintegration of their soul. And they will reintegrate with their deity self, their higher dimensional self. So that if somebody's come back from a near-death experience, they haven't experienced that. So as I've said before, that's all changing. If you want to go beyond that, if you want to have a near-death experience and go beyond that door, that up until now people who've died and come back have not been able to go past, do this work. Connect directly with extraterrestrial light beings, because they are the angels. They're the representatives. They're the portal between us and our reintegration of our true selves. So how did I get on that? So there's no separation between ETs and deities. So as I was saying now, when I first did CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind Protocols, Human-Initiated Contact with Extraterrestrials, when I first did that, my first experience was, okay, I'm now communicating with this higher dimensional extraterrestrial being who looks like a giant mantis, and he's in a red spaceship, this ruby red, globe spaceship, that was my first experience. He then said that he was my brother, which of course, that's, you're going to be like, oh, okay, what do you do with that? And then that turned into more and more ETs showing up and introducing me. First, they brought to me all of my dead relatives, which aren't dead. They're spirit beings. They're perfectly fine. They're just not, they just unzipped their human meat suit. Many of them have moved on into other higher dimensional things since then. And then they started saying, we want to take you to go meet somebody. And so I would allow this extraterrestrial energy being to take me to a higher dimension. And the next thing I know, I'm talking to a deity. I'm talking to, the what we call the yin yang symbol. That's a deity. That's a masculine, feminine, the mother father deity. That being considers itself, themselves, the parents of all of the deities. They'll say, we are the gods that the gods worship. And then there's beings beyond that. And then there's all kinds of beings in the middle, and they're in higher dimensions. We see them as gods. But they're just souls exactly like you who are in a higher dimensional state. Now, these ETs know that. We don't know that. But they know that. So there's no separation between ETs and deities. Most ETs that contact you are higher dimensional spirit relatives. So this is interesting. So you, of course, have the people that you know in this life, maybe who've passed on. You know who your grandparents were, and if you're old enough, your parents and your siblings and friends who have died, them. Those people will show up. And you'll be able to communicate with them. But extraterrestrials, beings that, look like this beautiful blue woman right there, wherever she might be, Arcturian or Andromedan or whatever she might be, beings like that will show up. And they'll say, you don't remember me, but I was your wife on planet Zothar, or, I was your daughter, or I was a human being. They remember you deeply and intimately. You may not consciously remember them. They will tell you about your past lives on planet Earth, perhaps with them, or maybe not with them. Some of them, remember, you come to Earth knowing you're going to be here for a long time, that there might be hundreds or thousands of incarnations. And there are beings that you've been friends with or closely, intimately connected with on multiple planets for millions, billions of years, and you go, hey, I'm going to do that Earth thing. And your friend goes, oh, that's so cool. Can I be your guide? You're like, totally. You'll be my guide. Yeah, I'll be your guide. And you know that you're not going to remember them, and they know you're not going to remember them, but they're going to stick with you for hundreds or thousands of Earth lifetimes. They're going to stay parked out there in their spaceship, and their job is to guide you, to help you. That's who these beings are. That's what being a human is. There's no way to know that from within the Earth frequency. There's no way to know that. So these beings will start talking to you like that. So most ETs that contact you are higher dimensional spirit relatives. ET channeling creates interdimensional portal. All right, so what I do, this is what I'm learning about ET channeling. When I channel these beings, which is, as you've seen, I don't go into a trance. Well, I do go into a trance, but I don't do the whole thing and I talk in a strange language. That's garbage. That's nonsense. That's a show. That's not what happens. All I'm doing is I'm listening, and I'll feel their energy. I'll feel their warmth, their love. I might feel some energy around my head, and my brain will start telling me what they're saying. I'll get feelings, intuitions, but I can tell the difference between something that's coming from me and something that's, I now know the difference. As I said, I experimented with channeling. I think I said it in this video. I experimented with channeling years ago and found out all I was doing was tapping into my unconscious fantasies. And it felt spiritual, so I'm now channeling. So I know the difference between that and something that's coming from outside. And if you connect with these beings, you'll know the difference too. And when I do this, and I'm talking to somebody who wants to hear what these beings have to say, it creates an interdimensional portal. And now what I've seen is that people who get these readings, their interactions with these beings takes a huge jump. So they start having dreams, they start having visitations, they start having deeper revelations and epiphanies and connections. And that is what I want. Unlike channelers who, go around the world, they want to be the channel, and if you want to hear from Zothar the Magnificent, you have to go to them, and have them channel Zothar. You don't get to do that. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I am acting as a conduit to create a connection for you. You can then take that connection and expand on it. Now, we'll see where this channeling goes. I'm only doing this because it was suggested to me. The light beings, came to me one day and said, "Hey, have you thought about doing this?" And they said, "Why don't you do this as a service?" The first thing they said is, "Why don't you let us mentor them through you?" So, I'm opening this up. If you go to thunderwizard.com, you'll see that's one of the subscriptions. You can be mentored by them. They oftentimes will work with me, will cooperate. Somebody will ask a question and they'll have an answer for it. Sometimes they'll volunteer information the person isn't even thinking about. But oftentimes the person will ask a question and the beings will go, "Hey, Mike, you take this one." Because then they know I'll be able to explain it, maybe even better than they will. So it's not like I'm not part of it, but what's really happening is I'm creating a connection for you. And then I said, when they made the suggestion, I said, "Let's try this out." So I started just going on into the channel and doing these free live Ask ETs, whatever you want, because I wanted to see how this worked. I wanted to see what would happen. And sure enough, these beings showed up and spoke through me. People started treating me like a psychic, and where they treat somebody like a vending machine and a trained monkey, and tell me where my keys are, and is my grandmother with you, and what happened to my cat, and when am I going to be rich, and those kinds of questions. I personally don't like that. I think it's nonsense. It doesn't do you any good. But the light beings don't respond to that kind of stuff either. That's not what they're there for. They're there to do something very specific, which we're going to get into. So ET channeling that I do creates an interdimensional portal that will continue and expand after the channeling session. Once the portal is created, the ETs will seek to reintegrate you. That is what they want. They have no interest in money, so don't go to them asking how to become rich. That's once you say that, the money part, just they don't have anything to respond to, and I'll share with you why. I've already said to you that money is an intellectual concept. That's even assuming, even if we go back to the original understanding of money, where you have these paper notes that are IOUs that go directly back to gold and silver. That's what money used to be. You had gold and silver coins. And if you didn't want to walk around with gold and silver, then you had pieces of paper that said an IOU from, a bank or whatever that was. That was money. That's paper money. Paper money is symbolic, was symbolic of an actual physical thing, and that had limited There was a limited amount, so that's what gave it value, right? It's not that gold does anything. Gold doesn't have any value in and of itself. It's pretty, okay, but you can't really do anything with it, especially, back hundreds of years. You could maybe make a gold chalice out of it, big deal. But if you're in the middle of the forest and you have, a big giant, gold nugget, you can't eat it. It's not going to build a house for you. It's not going to give you clothes. It has no value whatsoever except when two people get together and decide, oh, that represents value. It's an intellectual concept. But it's even worse than that now. Now, if you look into it, and I encourage you to do so, you'll find out that the money situation we have now really is totally non-existent. So for instance, when you go to the bank and you get a loan, what you're taught is that bank has a vault filled with a bunch of dollar bills, millions and millions and millions of dollar bills in there. And what's happening is that they're going to take out that $1 million and they're going to put it into your account, and then they're going to charge you interest on that. That's what you believe, right? That's not what happens anymore. What happens when you go to the bank? The whole thing is a Ponzi scheme. I'm here to tell you, banks are a Ponzi scheme. There's nothing there. They have nothing. When you go to get a loan from a bank, they literally create the money out of thin air. It doesn't exist. They don't get it from the treasury. They don't get it from somewhere. They push a button and they create nothing, and they create this false thing, money, and then they give it to you, and then they start charging you interest on that nothing. And you go and you buy a house, and you then pay a mortgage. So you start paying them huge amounts of interest on a nothing that they've given you. People are walking around killing themselves over money. And not only is it what it used to be, which was an actual physical symbol of value that we agree upon, which doesn't exist, means it's non-existent. It has no physical connection to anything. It is literally just made up on the spot. It's printed. The Fed just prints money from nothing, from nowhere. It is a giant Ponzi scheme. All of the banks are in cahoots with each other. It's called the banking cartel. They're owned by a small group of elites, and the whole thing is a sham. All of it. So I'm talking about that. If you try and get ETs to help you with money, they're going to go, what are you talking about? They're going to talk about what is real. And what is real is your spirit. That's the only thing that matters. It's the only true thing that exists. Being focused on money will take away your ability to manifest your life. I'm going to repeat that. Being focused on money will diminish your ability to manifest, because your world is a result of your intention focused on the screen of the matrix that creates a physical reality for you to live in. Basing your life on a non-existent thing that is really about reputation and acceptance. That's what money is. It's a control in fact, the government, the Fed, has defined money as a useful fiction. I kid you not. There was a case where the government went in and for whatever reason decided they were going to take away a guy's land, because the government does that. They say, oh, eminent domain, we're going to take this from you. He took them to court, and it went to some federal court where he was trying to say, these guys are unlawfully taking away my land. And here was the argument from the Fed. The government said, money doesn't exist, so nobody owns money. We supply this, and we can take it back from you whenever we want. And money is a useful fiction, meaning that they're admitting that they're making the whole thing up. And that was their basis, their defense for saying, we don't have to give this guy's land back to him. We don't have to give any money to him because money doesn't exist. We create it. We can take it back whenever we want. I'm not lying. That's exactly what their defense was. So anybody out there who thinks that what they need to do is go get a job and go work for so-and-so so you can have money because once you have it, you'll be safe, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Right now, it is a useful thing to show your commitment to value for something that you want. Somebody has put time and effort into something and you want that, you show them by giving them the symbol of money. But to live your life trying to hoard it and create it it takes you so far out of the connection of spirit that it destroys your life. Don't believe me? Look at the lives of any billionaire. Look at Bill Gates and tell me that he's happy. Look at George Soros. Look at, name them, Jeff Bezos. Look at any of these people's lives and tell me that they're happy and fulfilled. All right, so most ETs contact you or spirit relatives, interdimensional. Once portal is created, you will seek to reintegrate you. ETs are focused on awakening you to your deity self. That's another reason why going to them and saying, can you tell me where my keys are? You know, when am I going to get rich? And is my grandmother with you? And what happened to my dog, Fluffy? Those kinds of questions are meaningless to them. Because when they look at you, they see a deity who has focused all of their energy into a third dimensional experience. So that's what they see. They see somebody who's a deity who has convinced themselves they're this tiny little, pixelated avatar running around inside of a game. So their goal is to awaken you to the fact that you're a deity playing a video game. So they're going to start as soon as you're able to hear it. Because when they tell you this, it's not just going to be information. There's going to be energy behind it, and your brain and your mind will start expanding, and it'll be really blissful and amazing, and then you'll try and figure it out, and you'll end up feeling like you're going crazy. So that's one of the ways you know you're talking to an ET, when you doubt your sanity, when you think you've become an egotistical narcissist. When you start thinking that, okay, I've really lost it, I'm deluded, that's how you know you're talking to an ET, because an ET is like, no, you're not deluded. You're a deity. You're an all-powerful God in a tiny little video game. We want you to awaken to that. So that's as soon as they can, as soon as you're able to hear it, they'll start talking to you that way. 5D, what we call the 5D shift, is achieved when a certain percentage of population reintegrates. So what I'm doing with these channelings, is I am actually going around consciously seeking to create the 5D awakening. Because I know that by becoming a portal, by becoming a conduit for their energy, what's going to happen is you're going to start, if you open yourself to it and you're willing to go there, you will start to reintegrate. You'll start to reintegrate into your 5D self. You'll start to reintegrate into your deity self. You'll start to see how ridiculous all this nonsense is. You'll see how ridiculous it is to try and go after wealth, go after property, go after career, go after fame. You'll realize how ridiculous that is. I mean, if you want to see how ridiculous celebrity has become, look at what happened to poor Katy Perry. All she did was she went up on a plane that went up to the top of our atmosphere and then came back down. And all she did was take cute little selfies of herself. And she came back and thought that people were going to, that's what she thought was going to happen, that people are going to go, oh, how cute. Look at her. Oh, she looks so cute holding the flower and she's almost in space. How cute is that, right? That's what was supposed to happen. And people are absolutely tearing her to shreds. Tearing her to shreds. Look what happened to the whole thing with the Snow White, Rachel Zegler. Yeah, she's a young, self-declared narcissist celebrity. And she's falling apart, and people are just piling on, just tearing her to shreds. What that means is that the collective unconscious has come to realize that celebrity is a lie. The whole idea of being popular, the whole idea of celebrity, the whole idea of being an elite, the whole idea of being better than. I mean, we used to worship. I mean, look what happened to Robert De Niro. I'm old enough to remember when Robert De Niro was, oh my God, you didn't touch, he was like a god. Because he was an actor and he was very famous and he was a good actor. And actors like me got jealous of that because I'm just as good an actor as he was. I just didn't have his success. But the average person actually put these people on pedestals like they accomplished something. That's why, all of these actors think that they have some authority to talk about politics. And, they don't have the awareness to go, oh, I'm an entertainer. I'm a clown. I'm here to entertain you. I'm not here to talk about stuff I don't know anything about. But what's happening is that the collective unconscious of the planet has come to realize that it's all a farce. It's meaningless. There's no value in that. 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, absolutely. Being a famous star, oh, now you've become somebody. We're still hung up on money. So somebody who's, a billionaire who has, made a bunch of money through stocks and bonds or something like that, or a politician has, there's a lot of people who still think that means something, but that's going to come crashing down. And it's no secret, as I said, that money doesn't exist. Not only has it never existed, but even when it was representative of a physical, limited, thing like gold or silver, it still was a completely intellectual concept that only had value when two people agreed on it. But now it's no secret that actual money in banks, literally that money doesn't exist, that literally there's even nothing associated with it. Your paper dollar is not a note of legal tender. It is not an IOU for any physical symbol of value. It doesn't exist anymore. And the moment that people wake up and realize and go, wait a second, these banks have all this power and they don't even have that money thing they were talking about? It doesn't exist. They make it up on the spot. Oh, and they've planned it that way so that they can decide how much money they have and they don't? People still think that stocks and Wall Street, that there's some reality to it, that the whole thing isn't completely, totally orchestrated. People still think that it's a real thing. When people start to understand that, when the rest of the world starts to understand those things, that they're becoming aware of when it comes to politics and celebrity, because those are the very top of it. Politics, celebrity, and then the elites, bankers, and then the so-called dark force deep state. Once people start awakening, that all is going to come crumbling down. So light beings aren't going to respond to anything associated with, make me rich, make me powerful, when am I going to get money? They're not going to respond to any of that because from their perspective, they see the truth, that it's nonsense. What they realize is the truth is that your power comes from your soul, your ability to manifest your reality, to focus your intention on creating your physical reality and awakening to your true power. They know that that's what your real wealth is. So that's why they can come to a guy like me, a guy who I have no savings, I don't have any, I don't own any land, I've got a used car that I'm making payments on, I rent, I don't own anything, I don't have any influence on the world. That's why they can come to me and say, oh, it's you, the King of Earth. They can talk to me like that because they can see what my spirit is actually able to do. It's my job to wake up to that. And when they come to you, they're going to say the same thing. They're going to start talking to you. They're going to call you a deity. They're going to call you Vishnu. They're going to call you Kali. They're going to call you Shiva. They're going to call you. They're going to be dead serious. They're not going to be doing it to just blow smoke up your rear end. And they're doing that so that if you awaken to that, you realize, I have power to accomplish everything. I can create anything. Anything I choose. I can do anything. When you come to that awareness and you expand into that, then of course the dark forces of this world have no power over you. The elite narrative has no power over you. And you actually then start creating your reality. This is what we do when we do these live guided meditations. We are going out into our deity form and we are changing this world. And so ETs are focused on awakening your deity self. 5D is achieved when a certain percentage of population reintegrates. Now, I don't know what that percentage is. I wish I knew, but I don't. But I'm focused on my awakening, and doing these channelings is another way that I'm awakening to my 5D self. And my deepest desire is to bring 5D to Earth. So these channelings help me to do that. Somebody who really wants to know that and isn't looking for, a circus act. They really want to connect. That gives me the ability to be that conduit so that those beings can connect with them and awaken them. Okay, so reintegration cannot happen without interdimensional activation. Now, that's my experience. That's been my personal experience, and that's what I've seen. What I've seen is that people trying to, in their own mind, even with, human spirituality, trying to reintegrate, it's an extremely slow process. So if you want to completely kickstart that process, by thousands and thousands of times greater than anything you could do in one lifetime, connecting interdimensionally is the fastest, the most powerful way there is. I want to say I don't think there's anything else that can do that. So I'm slowly getting more and more comfortable within myself to start focusing on that solely. I want to get to the place where I don't worry about 3D stuff. And to the best of my knowledge, I have not accomplished that yet. I'm still bumping into my 3D human self. But I'm aware that that's the direction to go. And if I really believe what I'm told, if I really just accept everything that I'm told, there's literally nothing I can't accomplish. Literally nothing. So if I'm saying that about me, guess what? It's true for you also. So, reintegration cannot happen without interdimensional activation. We have to connect to that higher dimensional frequency. We can't think our way into it. We can't think our way into it. It has to be done through experience. And then once you experience it, you're going to throw away your thinking. You're going to just toss it in the river. It's a third dimensional thing that allows you to function in 3D. Doesn't accomplish anything. You'll also start to see the folly of other people. And you'll be able to see very quickly, oh my God, that person is so lost in ridiculousness. That is so pathetic. You won't be able to get entertained by anything on television. Anything on video. The only things on that I get any, value from would be Rumble and YouTube with people who are actually working towards revealing the lies of the narrative. I enjoy seeing that. Sometimes I get wrapped up in the negativity of it, but that's really the only thing I get any value from anymore. Surfing, walking in the woods, meditating, connecting with people, connecting with light beings, and doing what I can to help expand this community of reintegrated souls. So if you want to be part of this fifth dimensional world and creating it, first thing, do whatever you choose to do that will connect you interdimensionally. I've got things on the channel. The live guided meditations are free. Go do that. Very powerful. Plenty of videos about how to do CE5. You don't have to do CE5 with me. You can go find CE5 protocols. You can hook up, find CE5 communities on Facebook all over the world. You can go to Dr. Greer's movies and books and go to his seminars. There's no shortage of how you can connect interdimensionally to these light beings. And I'm doing these readings if you want one of those. I have, where is it? Where the heck is it? So I'm currently doing channeled readings, and there's two versions. So there's the 50% off. It's no longer for 1 week. I'm going to keep that 50% off one. But there's two versions. There's one where I record the session and put it up on my YouTube channel. And so in exchange for you allowing me to do that, I take off half the price. And then if you want a private session that you don't want publicly out there on the channel, then there's a full price. That's the things that you can take a look at what I've got at thunderwizard.com. The energy practices that I do are, I still am doing energy practices myself to continue to expand my energy body so that I can take more of this higher dimensional energy so I can create even greater portals. So if you go to thunderwizard.com and go to the shop, you'll see a bunch of practices. You can also subscribe to various levels of energy practices or counseling with me. I'm now going to start focusing on, instead of being an apprentice, having an apprentice where I'm teaching you what to do, I'm going to start moving into doing these channeled apprenticeships where, in cooperation with light beings and I will help apprentice you, guide you towards whatever you want. So these are the things that I'm working on. I'm making available to you. Many of them are free. I'm not the only game in town, but I strongly desire you to do this. I recommend that you start seeking out how to interdimensionally reintegrate. I think it is the single most important thing anybody can be doing, and I would love to help you with that any way that I can. All right, so that's it, my friends. You've got all the channel.thunderwizard.com. You can find my books and everything here. Thunderwizard.com is the Patreon channel that has all of the energy practices I talked about. So these are the links for those things. There's links in the descriptions as well. I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves. And if you're seeing this today, on Wednesday, I'll see you in about 7.5 hours. I wish you all the best. I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves.